What if everything you've been taught about Christianity was only part of the truth? What if some things, even in the Bible, have been manipulated to favor a particular narrative? What if the very foundation of your faith has been shaped by a hidden history? In this video, we're going to uncover secrets that have been concealed for centuries. We'll explore one of the oldest and most complete versions of the Bible in the world, the Ethiopian Orthodox Bible. This ancient text contains books that were left out of the Bible most of us know today, and among these hidden books is the Book of Enoch, a fascinating and mysterious text that holds the keys to understanding the end times, angels, and the fate of the world. But what if I told you that the end of the world might be closer than you think, that the truth about our future has been right in front of us all along, hidden in plain sight? In this video, we're not just looking at what others have told you about the end times. We're going to clear out all the noise and dive into the oldest biblical truths, revealing the timeline of the world's creation, the prophecy of the 70 generations, and the real message about the end of days. Stay with me, because what you're about to hear could change everything you thought you knew about Christianity and the Bible. The Ethiopian Orthodox Church holds a unique understanding of the world's timeline, one that stretches far beyond what most Western traditions teach. According to their teachings, the world will come to an end in 8,000 years from its creation. This isn't just an abstract idea. It's a belief deeply rooted in ancient texts and supported by early Christian scholars. The concept of the 8,000 years comes from several sources, including ancient books like the Book of Enoch, the Maccabees, and other texts that were part of the ancient Christian tradition. These writings were included in the Ethiopian Orthodox Bible, but were later excluded from the canons of most other Christian traditions. Other important texts, such as the Shepherd of Hermas, the Book of the Covenant, Book of Esdras, Book of Baruch, Book of Jubilees, and Maccabean also support this timeline, each contributing to the broader understanding of the world's purpose and its eventual completion. One of the earliest scholars to mention a timeline for the world's existence was Julius Africans, a Christian historian from the 3rd century AD. He is one of the first to explicitly state that the world's history spans 6,000 years, with the final 1,000 years representing a time of rest and judgment. This idea of a 6,000-year period followed by a 1,000-year Sabbath or millennial reign was influential in shaping early Christian eschatology. Other early Christian thinkers like Irenaeus and Eusebius also explored the concept of a set time for the world, though their interpretations varied. Still, the core idea remained consistent. The world has a purpose, and it will reach its completion at a predetermined moment in history. In Ethiopian Orthodox culture, this 8,000-year concept isn't just a theological idea, it's something woven into the fabric of everyday life. If a child is being particularly troublesome, you might hear a parent or grandparent say, "the 8,000th child." It's a playful yet stern way of saying, "you're pushing it," and there's a limit to how far you can go before consequences come. This saying reflects the idea that just as the world has a set timeline, so too does human behavior. There's a time when things reach their breaking point. In the Ethiopian Orthodox tradition, the 8,000-year timeline represents the fullness of time, a divine plan that encompasses creation, fall, redemption, and final judgment. It's not just a theological idea. It's a way of understanding the entire scope of human history and the ultimate destiny of the world. So, what does this 8,000-year concept mean for us today? How does it fit into the larger narrative of the end times? Ethiopia stands as a beacon of resilience and faith, a nation that has never been colonized, even as empires rose and fell around it. It is a land where Christianity has been practiced since the early centuries, and where the oldest Bible in the world has been preserved for millennia. Even Jeremiah states, "Can an Ethiopian change his skin, or a leopard his spots? Then may ye also do good, that are accustomed to do evil." This verse uses the image of an Ethiopian and a leopard to convey the idea of an unchangeable nature. The Ethiopian, representing a people often associated with distinct characteristics, and the leopard, with its unalterable spots, are used to emphasize the difficulty of changing one's inherent nature. While the verse primarily focuses on the moral inability of people to do good without divine intervention, it also serves as a metaphor for something that cannot be altered. In the context of Ethiopia's identity, this imagery can be connected to the nation's unyielding nature and resilience throughout history. Ethiopia, in both biblical and historical terms, has maintained its unique identity, culture, and faith, even in the face of external pressures and challenges. Much like the leopard whose spots cannot be changed, Ethiopia's core identity has remained steadfast despite centuries of colonization attempts, invasions, and conflicts. While much of Africa was being carved up by European powers during the scramble for Africa, Ethiopia remained independent. Most African nations were colonized during this period, as European countries like Britain, France, Belgium, and Germany sought to expand their empires. But Ethiopia, under Emperor Menelik II, famously defeated the Italian forces at the Battle of Adwa in 1896, securing its independence and becoming the only African nation to successfully resist colonization during the scramble for Africa. Even when Emperor Menelik II rallied the Ethiopian people to fight against the European invaders, his speech carried a powerful and timeless message. Defend your country, for the invader does not come only for your land, but for your faith, your freedom, and your way of life. If we allow them to defeat us, they will destroy our churches, humiliate our people, and impose their will upon us. Stand firm, for God is with us, and this is our land, given to us by Him. Fight not only for yourselves, but for the generations to come, so they may live free and proud as Ethiopians. This demonstrates that even the kings of Ethiopia were deeply concerned about preserving their faith from being westernized. They believed that faith was the foundation upon which a nation stands firm and continues to exist. It was not merely a personal conviction, but a collective strength that unified the people and sustained the country's sovereignty and identity through the ages. The Ethiopian Orthodox Church, with its ancient texts and unique traditions, holds a special place in the history of Christianity. While much of the world's Christian narrative has been shaped by Western powers, Ethiopian monks, often living in the wilderness, have dedicated their lives to prayer, fasting, and seeking divine revelation, preserving a deep connection to the spiritual truths of the Bible. The preservation of the oldest Bible in Ethiopia is not just a matter of historical significance, it's a testament to the nation's unwavering faith, even in the face of adversity. Surrounded by Islam and cut off from much of the rest of the world, Ethiopia has kept the flame of Christianity burning brightly, with a deep understanding of the Bible that is not shaped by external powers or political agendas. Even Martin Luther, the founder of the Protestant Reformation, recognized the profound nature of Ethiopian Christianity. In a meeting with Ethiopian deacon Michael, Luther remarked that his vision for the Protestant Church was to be like the Ethiopian Orthodox Church, a church that had preserved its purity and connection to the ancient Christian faith. But Ethiopia's connection to faith extends even further back. Before the arrival of Christianity, Ethiopians worshipped Yahweh in a manner similar to the ancient Jews. They called themselves Haymanot, meaning faithful, and their practices mirrored those of the Israelites. Today, there are still Ethiopian Jews known as Bet Israel or Black Jews, who maintain this ancient connection to Judaism. The Bible also speaks of Ethiopia in significant ways. In the book of Psalms, Ethiopia is mentioned as a nation that raises its hands to God in worship. Ethiopia shall soon stretch out her hands unto God. This powerful image reflects Ethiopia's deep connection to God as a nation that, throughout history, has sought to honor and worship the Creator. One of the most profound biblical references to Ethiopia is found in the story of the Ethiopian eunuch, who is mentioned in the New Testament. In Acts, the Apostle Philip encounters the eunuch, a high-ranking official in the court of the Queen of Ethiopia. After Philip explains the scriptures to him, the eunuch is baptized, becoming one of the first converts to Christianity in Africa. This story highlights Ethiopia's early and significant role in the spread of Christianity. The Ethiopian monarchy also reflects the deep connection to Christ. Every king's name began with Lion of Judah, symbolizing the ultimate sovereignty of Jesus Christ as the true ruler of the nation. The most famous of these kings was Emperor Haile Selassie I, whose full name was Ras Tafari Makonnen, the last emperor of Ethiopia. He was the last ruler of the Solomonic dynasty, a dynasty believed by Ethiopians to be descended from King Solomon and the Queen of Sheba. The Solomonic dynasty, which spanned centuries, ended with Emperor Haile Selassie's reign, symbolizing the final chapter of an ancient lineage that traced its roots back to the biblical King Solomon. Today, while the world is focused on conflicts like the war between Ukraine and Russia, The ongoing Israel-Gaza situation, the American election, and the Syrian war, Ethiopia has quietly endured one of the most deadly and devastating wars in recent history. The death toll from this conflict may surpass that of the Ukraine-Russia war, the Israel-Gaza conflict, and any other major war over the past 5 years. Yet despite this immense suffering, the world's attention remains elsewhere. Ethiopia's fate has often seemed to mirror the fate of the world itself. For example, before World War II, Ethiopia was engaged in a brutal war with Italy for the second time. Despite being the only African member of the League of Nations, which forbade member nations from being invaded, Ethiopia's plea for help went largely ignored by Europe. A few years later, the same Italy that had invaded Ethiopia allied with Nazi Germany to launch a devastating campaign across Europe. This moment in history speaks to the unique position Ethiopia holds in the world, often overlooked, yet pivotal in the larger scheme of global events. The Ethiopian Civil War, which began in 2020 and resulted in immense suffering, seems to have been followed year after year by major global conflicts: the Russia-Ukraine war, the Israel-Hamas war, and renewed instability in Syria. This unsettling pattern raises the question, could Ethiopia's suffering symbolize something larger, a warning of greater turmoil to come? In the Bible, God often used his prophets to demonstrate symbolic acts that foreshadowed future events. Ezekiel was commanded to lie on his side for hundreds of days to represent the siege of Jerusalem, while Jeremiah wore a yoke to warn of impending captivity under Babylon. Hosea's marriage to an unfaithful woman illustrated Israel's spiritual betrayal. These acts were not mere gestures. They were divine messages, living prophecies of what was to come. Could Ethiopia, a nation with profound biblical significance, be playing a similar role in our time? Its recent suffering might serve as a prophetic mirror, reflecting the growing divisions and conflicts that could soon consume the world, urging humanity to heed the warnings before it's too late. The Septuagint, often called the LXX, was translated into Greek around the 3rd to 2nd century BC. It was created for Greek-speaking Jewish communities who had begun to lose their ability to read Hebrew. This version of the scriptures was widely embraced by early Christians, including the apostles, because it was filled with clear references to the coming Messiah, prophecies that pointed directly to Jesus Christ. The Ethiopian Orthodox Church still holds this version as its foundational text, preserving the ancient timeline and theology it contains. But the Masoretic Text, the version most Western Christians unknowingly rely on, tells a different story. The MT was finalized between the 7th and 10th centuries AD by Jewish scholars who were responding to the rise of Christianity. By this time, the Christian faith had spread across the Roman Empire and beyond, and its followers were using the Septuagint to prove that Jesus was the Messiah foretold in the scriptures. In response, these Jewish scholars edited their scriptures, intentionally making changes to undermine Christian claims. One of the most striking differences lies in the genealogies. The LXX presents a longer timeline, placing the creation of the world around 5,500 BC. This aligns with early Christian eschatology and the Ethiopian Orthodox Church's teaching of the 8,000-year timeline, where the world is divided into 5,500 years before Christ and 2,500 years after his birth. In contrast, the MT shortens the ages of the patriarchs, such as Adam and Seth, cutting centuries from the biblical timeline. This creates a shorter, less cohesive view of history, one that distances Jewish tradition from Christian interpretations of prophecy. And it wasn't just the timeline that was altered. Key messianic prophecies were softened or obscured. For example, in the book of Isaiah, the LXX describes the Messiah's birth from a virgin, using the Greek word parthenos. But the MT changes this to young woman, diluting the prophecy's connection to Jesus. These changes weren't accidental. They were part of a deliberate effort to rewrite the narrative and remove the messianic threads that Christians saw so clearly in the LXX. The Western Bible, as we know it today, was adapted from this altered text. Most Protestant Bibles, and even many Catholic ones, use the MT as their Old Testament foundation. This means that for centuries, Christians have been reading a version of the scriptures that was specifically designed to counteract their faith. In contrast, the Ethiopian Orthodox Church has preserved the 81-book Bible, which includes the LXX and additional texts like the Book of Enoch, the Book of Jubilees, and the Maccabees. These texts not only align with the longer timeline, but also emphasize the divine plan for humanity, culminating in the 8,000-year concept. The Ethiopian Orthodox tradition remains unaltered by the political and theological agendas that shaped the MT, offering a purer, more authentic view of biblical history. The differences between the LXX and MT are not trivial. They reveal a deep divide in how the Bible was preserved and presented. The MT reflects the human effort to rewrite history, while the LXX stands as a testament to the original faith and prophecy. The Bible you know today might have been shaped by forces that sought to obscure the truth, but the Ethiopian Orthodox Church reminds us that the unaltered Word of God still exists if we are willing to seek it. This is not just about history, it's about understanding the foundation of your faith. The LXX offers a window into the unbroken truth of Scripture, while the MT challenges us to confront how human agendas can shape even the most sacred texts. Which version of history will you trust? Ethiopian Orthodox Christians, who once comprised approximately 85% of the population, now represent about 43% of Ethiopia's population. The shift in religious demographics reflects broader global trends, such as the spread of Protestantism and the increasing influence of Islam, especially in certain regions of the country. Despite this change, Ethiopian Orthodoxy remains a dominant and deeply influential religious tradition in Ethiopia. They adhere to a faith that distinguishes itself from many modern expressions of Christianity around the world. They assert that they house the Ark of the Covenant, trace their lineage back to King David and King Solomon, and construct the impressive Lalibela churches to resemble Jerusalem. But what drives these bold claims and unique practices? Is it pride, dramatization, or something deeper? To understand, we must look at the roots of their faith, which intertwines Christianity with ancient Jewish traditions. Ethiopian Christianity is not merely an imported religion shaped by modern influences. It is a faith rooted in the old ways, fused with Jewish culture, and shaped by a desire to remain distinct and spiritually pure. This is not about being pompous. It is about a nation wrestling with God to be known and favored by Him, just as Jacob wrestled with God and was blessed with the name Israel. Ethiopian Orthodox Christians claim that the Ark of the Covenant rests in Axum, guarded by monks who dedicate their lives to its protection. This claim is tied to the belief that their kings descended from King Solomon and the Queen of Sheba. According to Ethiopian tradition, their son Menelik I brought the Ark to Ethiopia. While Western scholars often view this as legend, the Ethiopians hold it as sacred truth, woven into their identity as a chosen people. During the 12th century, King Lalibela commissioned the construction of a series of rock-hewn churches designed to mirror the layout of Jerusalem. This was not an act of imitation, but of devotion. At a time when the pilgrimage to Jerusalem was dangerous and difficult, Lalibela sought to bring the holy city to his people, creating a space where they could connect directly with God. One might ask why Ethiopian Orthodox Christians strive so hard to isolate themselves and preserve these ancient traditions. The answer lies in their spiritual struggle to be favored by God. Just as Jacob wrestled with God to be blessed, Ethiopian Orthodox Christians wrestled to maintain their unique identity and relationship with the divine. This isn't just a theological concept, it's a lived reality that has shaped Ethiopia's history. Ethiopia's spiritual determination may explain why it remains the only African nation never to be colonized. This stands in stark contrast to the history of the Israelites, who, as God's chosen people, endured slavery and exile. It's almost as if God has used these two nations to demonstrate His love and sovereignty in different ways. One nation, Israel, humbled through slavery to show His power to redeem, and the other, Ethiopia, elevated as a symbol of freedom to show His power to preserve. Ethiopia's story is a reminder of what it means to wrestle with God, not to oppose Him, but to seek His blessing and favor with relentless faith. Their isolation, their bold claims, their preservation of ancient traditions, all of this points to a deep desire to be known as God's chosen people. This is not just an Ethiopian story, it's a Christian story. It challenges all of us to push the boundaries of our faith and claim our identity as children of God, chosen and loved by Him. Ethiopia's legacy, rooted in faith and freedom, is not a relic of the past. It's a living testament to the power of wrestling with God and the blessings that come from holding fast to Him, no matter the cost. Just as Jacob wrestled with God and was struck on the hip, Ethiopia's story is one of both divine favor and divine chastisement. The Ethiopian people have faced unimaginable hardships, not at the hands of foreign conquerors, but seemingly from God himself. Famines, droughts, and internal strife have scarred the nation so deeply that the Western world has branded them as the hungry children of Ethiopia in the late 80s and early 90s. This branding is not just a reflection of suffering, it is a reminder that Ethiopia, like all nations, is not perfect. They have sinned, and their transgressions have not gone unnoticed by God. Yet, what stands out is that Ethiopia's suffering comes not from the hands of other nations, but from within or through acts of God. Even the recent war, one of the deadliest in modern history, was a conflict among Ethiopians themselves. This pattern has persisted throughout their history, as though God has made a covenant with them, not to place them under the dominion of other nations, but to allow their trials to come directly from his hand. This pattern of divine discipline is not unique to Ethiopia. The Bible is filled with examples of God using the less seen, the forgotten, and the unworthy to accomplish his purposes. In 1 Corinthians, Paul reminds us that God chose the foolish things of the world to shame the wise. God chose the weak things of the world to shame the strong. Ethiopia's story aligns with this divine principle. When famine struck the land, it wasn't just a punishment, but a way to refine the people, to remind them of their dependence on God. Just as Israel's exile and suffering were not without purpose, Ethiopia's struggles seem to point to something greater, a people tested and purified for God's work. Consider the story of Joseph in Genesis. Betrayed by his brothers, sold into slavery, and forgotten in prison, Joseph was the embodiment of someone discarded by the world. Yet God used him to save not only Egypt, but also his own family during a time of famine. Similarly, Ethiopia's suffering might appear to the world as a mark of abandonment, but in God's plan, it is a sign of preparation. In the book of Daniel, Ethiopia is mentioned in the context of future prophecies that describe conflicts involving powerful kingdoms. In Daniel it says, "He shall have power over the treasures of gold and silver, and over all the precious things of Egypt. Also the Libyans and the Ethiopians shall be at his steps." This verse refers to a ruler from the east who will rise to power, gaining control over Egypt and the surrounding regions, including Ethiopia. If we interpret the king from the east as China, this prophecy takes on new relevance in light of China's growing influence in Africa. China has made significant investments in Ethiopia, particularly in infrastructure, trade, and natural resources, positioning itself as a dominant force in the region. The mention of Ethiopia in this prophecy aligns with the modern geopolitical reality where Ethiopia, along with other African nations, is increasingly tied to the influence of Eastern powers. As the prophecy unfolds, Daniel 11:44 adds, "But tidings out of the east and out of the north shall trouble him. Therefore he shall go forth with great fury to destroy, and utterly to make away many." This suggests that the ruler from the east will face challenges from other regions, leading to greater conflict. The north, in this prophecy, can be understood as referring to Europe and America, two major geopolitical powers that have historically held significant influence over global affairs. The growing tensions between Eastern powers like China and Western powers like the United States and Europe are becoming more pronounced, especially as China's reach expands in Africa. Ethiopia's role, as part of this growing influence from the East, may reflect its involvement in the broader struggles of the end times. As China's influence continues to grow in Africa, the prophecy's vision of conflict between the East and the North becomes more apparent, suggesting that Ethiopia's future will be shaped by the clash of these powerful global forces in the lead-up to the final days. Isaiah states, "And it shall come to pass in that day that the Lord shall set his hand again the second time to recover the remnant of his people, which shall be left from Assyria, and from Egypt, and from Pathros, and from Cush, Ethiopia, and from Elam, and from Shinar, and from Hamath, and from the islands of the sea." This prophecy seems to be fulfilled through the return of Ethiopian Jews, also known as Beta Israel, to Israel in recent decades. Several significant waves of immigration have taken place, particularly during the 1980s and 1990s, such as Operation Moses in 1984 and Operation Solomon in 1991, where thousands of Ethiopian Jews were airlifted to Israel. These movements have marked the fulfillment of the prophecy, as Ethiopian Jews have been returning to the land of Israel, fulfilling the biblical promise of the return of the exiles from Ethiopia and other nations. In the book of Isaiah, God declares, "I will give you treasures of darkness and riches hidden in secret places, so that you may know that I am the Lord, the God of Israel, who summons you by name." Ethiopia's treasures may not be gold or wealth, but their faith, resilience, and spiritual heritage are treasures that have been preserved through the darkest times. God's goodness extends to all nations, each finding its unique way of aligning with His divine favor through resilience, faith, and most importantly, His boundless grace. While the faithfulness of a people may contribute, it is ultimately God's unmerited love that blesses and sustains them. Ethiopia's journey is one example of how God works through a nation, but His love is universal. As the Gospel declares, "For God so loved the world that He gave His only Son," reminding us that His grace reaches all, His blessings are abundant, and His love encompasses every person and nation. Each has a role in His plan, reflecting His goodness in their distinct way. If you would like to explore the Book of Enoch in more detail, particularly in relation to its end times prophecies, or if there are any specific nations that you believe should be considered in the context of the end times, feel free to share your thoughts in the comments below.